Over the years, TDS has had a wide range of towers, from shop towers to event towers. As of now, the game has about 40 towers, including the shop and event towers. Now, having these towers is not a very hard thing for a high-level player, but it can get quite grindy and boring for a new player that just joined TDS and gets overwhelmed with the amount of towers there are to be purchased. And so I'm gonna be showing you the 10 best towers that you can purchase if you are a low level player and you want to get better at the game. So you should probably watch this video, as I'm going to be showing each tower based on its statistics, but also my personal opinion, because I am a pretty high level player. No flex there. So let's get started with Soldier coming in 10th place. The tower costs 350 coins to purchase from the shop, and it's a pretty good tower for beginners as it gets hidden detection pretty early on, and it's not that expensive to upgrade, only costing about 5,000 cash to max it out. At max level, the tower doesn't do the best DPS, but oh well, it makes it work, I guess, as it does about 19 DPS at max level. In 9th place, we have the Militant. Now, the Militant is sort of a stronger version of Soldier, kind of, and it's a bit more expensive than Soldier, costing about 2,000 coins to purchase from the shop. Now, this tower as well gets early hidden detection. The tower is a bit more expensive to upgrade, as it costs a total of $13,000 to max this tower out, but at max level it does way more DPS than Soldier. It does about 44.3 DPS. Coming in 8th place is the Pyromancer. The Pyromancer costs the same price of 2,000 coins to purchase from the shop, and this is a pretty good tower if you want to use it as a support, I guess, to melt the defenses of stronger enemies, as its fire time can be pretty helpful and come in handy to melt down the defenses of the stronger enemies. The tower itself doesn't really do the best damage at max level. It has a DPS of only 27, but its burn time also contributes to it, because at max level it has a longer burn time, which means its fire stays longer on the enemies, and even when the enemies are out of the tower's range, they still get damaged because of the fire that's left on them. So it's a pretty good tower to use if you're a beginner, and you can help out some of the pros with this tower. Coming in 7th place is the Shotgunner. The Shotgunner costs 2,500 coins to purchase from the shop. Now, this tower is mainly used for speedrunning game modes such as Molten, because of its ability to kill multiple enemies at once. Even though it has a pretty short range, but it can attack multiple enemies at once, and it also gets hidden detection pretty early on, so that's another advantage. Even though the tower is expensive to max, which is costing about $15,000, it does way more DPS than all of the previous towers I've mentioned so far, coming in about 71 DPS. So this is a pretty good tower, and you should have it if you're a beginner. In 6th place, we have the Ace Pilot. Now, the Ace Pilot is a bit cheaper than all the previous towers, costing about 1,500 coins from the shop. This tower is flying towers, obviously, and it can attack multiple enemies as it flies by. The tower is pretty expensive to upgrade, and it gets hidden detection pretty later on. Like, it doesn't get it in the first few levels, it gets it in the last levels, or close to the last levels. But its upgrades where it drops bombs is the best one, but when you upgrade it to its ability of dropping bombs, that's when this tower really takes a turn, as its bombs do splash damage, which means they deal damage to multiple enemies at once. Of course, at max level it is the strongest, but however it's the expensive one. Now, upgrading this to max is expensive, but it is cheaper than the previous few towers I mentioned, because this one costs only about 8,000 cash to max it out. At max level, it has a DPS of about 128, which is very good, and it is actually one of the best towers. In 6th place, we have the Warden. Now, the Warden tower won't be there for you in the shop because, well, you have to first do something before you buy it. You have to beat the pizza party map to be able to buy the Warden tower. Now the pizza party map itself, it's not that hard. It can get quite frustrating if you find bad teammates, but overall it's a pretty easy game mode and you can beat it with pros, which you can find literally everywhere. The tower itself costs 4,000 coins to purchase, but you could also buy it with 800 Robux, even though I don't know why you would want to buy it with 800 Robux when it's not that expensive. Now this is a melee tower, which means it doesn't shoot, alright, it hits with its baton. The ability of this tower is that it can stun enemies after a certain amount of hits, which is a pretty good feature, and also gets hidden detection pretty early on. However, the tower does have a pretty short range and kind of a long fire rate, which means it hits a bit slower, but its ability to stun the enemies definitely adds up to that. The tower does about 144 DPS at max level, which is very high for a melee tower. In 5th place, we have the 3 support towers known as Commander, DJ, and Medic. Commander boosts the fire rate of the towers when you use its call to arms ability, which you can get at level 2. The DJ boosts the range of the towers by a few percentage, and also it gives a discount to each tower upgrade, meaning that if you upgrade your DJ, your towers will be a bit cheaper to upgrade, and this is a pretty good and helpful support tower. And the 3rd support tower is the Medic. Now when you max the Medic, it has the ability to heal your towers if it gets stunned, and this tower can come in handy because there are some bosses in the game that stun abuse your towers, so you can just keep using Medic to, well, unstun your tower. The good thing is that the Medic is immune to the stuns of bosses, which is actually a very good thing because back then it didn't used to be immune and it wasn't really a good support tower. Coming in 4th place, we have the money towers, or the towers that give you money, like the Cowboy and the Farm. Now let's go with the Cowboy first. So the Cowboy is a tower you unlock by beating the Badlands map. Now the Badlands map, it's actually a pretty difficult map as it has 3 lanes, but you can beat it by getting help from the pros in the community. And you don't really have to buy the tower, you just unlock it for free once you beat the Badlands map. The Cowboy Tower does both damage and also gives you money. Once it shoots a certain amount of times, it gives you a certain amount of cash, and as you upgrade the tower and you spam more cowboys, you get more and more cash as they do damage. The tower itself does 38.12 DPS at max level, which is not that much, but the fact that it gives you $80 per 6 shot is actually a very good deal. The next money tower is, of course, the Farm. The Farm gives you money every wave. However, there is a placement limit of 8. Now this is a pretty hot take, but coming in 3rd place is the Mortar. The Mortar, it doesn't really have hidden detection, which is one of its disadvantages, but the good part about this tower is that it can do a lot of splash damage. Even though the tower is expensive, at max level it has about 114 DPS, which is actually a pretty good tower for a cliff tower, which is a pretty good thing for a cliff tower. This tower can also attack the flying enemies, which is one of its abilities, unique abilities, and also it's immune to the stuns because, well, it's a cliff tower, so it cannot really get stunned by the bosses, as the bosses go for the ground towers. The tower also has lead penetration, which means it can attack the lead enemies and also melt down the defenses of the strong enemies. However, unfortunately, there is a placement limit of 4 for this tower, but at the end of the day, it is understandable because of how good this tower is. And as for unlocking the tower, you cannot really purchase this from the shop. You have to reach level 75 to unlock it. So if you're a new player, maybe go for level 75 in order to unlock this tower. Now in 2nd place we have the Minigunner. Now that the Minigunner has gotten a pretty insane buff in a recent update, this is one of the best towers in the game. The fact that it doesn't have a placement limit at all and you can spam up to 40 of them in a solo game mode, it can actually do a lot more damage than the best tower in the game. of course with the help of Commander's Call to Arms ability. The Minigunner costs 5,000 coins to unlock from the shop, which is a pretty good price because of how good this tower is. It is a bit expensive to place, costing about 2,000 cash, but it actually does pretty good DPS, kind of. It does 92 DPS, which is not really the best compared to the previous towers that we have discussed, but the fact that the previous towers had a placement limit and this tower doesn't have a placement limit is actually a pretty good thing, because then it can do more DPS as you just spam Minigunner. The tower gets hidden detection pretty early on, and it also has lead penetration, which means it can shoot the enemies made up of lead. And finally, the moment you've been waiting for, the top best tower in the game. Now, the pros, they probably know which one it is, but if you're a noob in the game, well, the best tower in the game you should go for is the Accelerator. Now, the Accelerator is a hardcore tower, which means that you can only get it by playing hardcore. Hardcore gives you gems instead of coins, and well, this one's gonna take you some time to grind because the Accelerator costs a whopping 2,500 gems, and in a solo hardcore match with very low DPS towers, you would get about 20 to 30 gems every 7 to 8 minutes, which would give you, well, if you do the calculations, about 200 to 300 gems per hour. So it would take you maybe like 24 hours or less to get this tower, but with the straight grinding. Now obviously no normal TDS player is gonna grind for a tower straight up for 24 hours, but maybe you could do that if you're a maniac. You also need to be level 50 plus to be able to get this tower, because again, this is a hardcore tower, and to be able to play hardcore you need to be at least level 50. So but like grinding out all those levels and also at the end grinding out gems to buy this tower. But trust me, at the end this tower definitely is worth it. Even though this tower has a placement limit of 8, this tower is a very good tower. It does a whopping 286 DPS at max level. This is also one of the more expensive towers, costing about 53,000 cash to upgrade it to max level without any DJ support. The tower gets hidden detection very early on from level 1. It doesn't have flying detection though, but it does have lead penetration, which means it can melt down the defenses of enemies, and that is pretty logical since this tower shoots a laser beam, and logically laser beams are meant to do that. And overall, this is the best tower in the game, so if you're a new player you should definitely go for this tower. And there you go, those are the top 10 best towers in Tower Defense Simulator as of now that you should definitely grind for if you're a new player. Now there are obviously going to be some people that won't agree with me, and there are probably some other towers that are better than the ones I mentioned, but oh well, grind for whatever you want at the end. This is just a suggestion video to help you out. If this was helpful, consider leaving a like and subscribing, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.